As always, I'm super excited to be here with you, and I'm beyond grateful that you chose Sex Talks Podcast once again. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Sex Talks Podcast family. Here, we are all about creating an informed and educated society of young people who can openly have conversations on sexual health matters while sharing their personal stories and hearing from experts in the field. Today's episode is one that is heavy but powerful and necessary. It might have been one of the most important conversations we've had just yet on this podcast. We are heading to the Zambezi Region where menstruation is a natural and an essential biological process, but it's often surrounded by silence, stigma, and deeply rooted cultural taboos. Those beliefs, through long-standing, can unintentionally limit girls' access to education, opportunities, and sometimes even their sense of safety. In today's conversation, we'll explore certain traditional practices such as the Sikenge, which is a rite of passage for young girls, as well as the labia, elongation, and dry sex. While these customs are part of cultural fabric in some communities, it's important to engage in a respectful dialogue about how they may affect the health, dignity, and the rights of girls and young women, particularly when it comes to issues such as trauma, gender-based violence, and vulnerability to HIV. To help us unpack this conversation, I'm joined by the brilliant voice Munukayumbwa Ellis-Mwiya. She is the Secretary General of the Zambezi Girl Child Foundation, and she's a fierce advocate for girls' rights and has been at the front line of challenging harmful practices that are still affecting young girls and women in her region. Well, I call her Mimi because sometimes I struggle to pronounce her name very correctly. So you guys will have to bear with me as I address her as Mimi. Mimi, good morning and welcome to Sex Talks Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Selma. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Today we're about to have a conversation with is often silenced in a lot of communities, and Zambezi Region is one of those communities where those conversations are often considered as a taboo, those that our parents find uncomfortable to discuss with us, and that's what we mainly prioritize here on Sex Talks Podcast. Now, let's start with periods. This is something that over half of the population experience, but in many places, we are still not allowed to speak about it. In your experience, why is menstruation still a taboo in your region?
I think mostly because menstrual blood is thought of as dirty, and it's not. And there needs to be a big mind shift to think of it as a completely natural thing, because we don't think of going to the toilet to take a dump. That's a very messy affair, but even that is more spoken about than a girl getting her menstruation, which is also just going to the toilets to clean up kind of thing. So I think it's the dirt and shame aspect around it.
Well, Mimi, what are some of those most harmful myths surrounding menstruation that young girls still believe or are taught about in the region? Like one, when you say that when a girl gets their menstruation, the blood is considered as dirty. What are some of those that still exist in your region?
Girls are told things like you can't cook for men, they'll get sick, or you can't sit on the same chair as a man, you'll get sick. And when you think of, or you can't put salt in food when you're on your period, and when you think about a lot of these things, it is just our parents and grandparents trying to be overly cautious. You know, I know biologically when I'm on my period, I have a heavier salt hand or something. So instead of just telling a girl, there are hormones inside you, and this is what the hormones are doing to you. Also, they probably didn't have the language. They just say, you'll make people sick. You know? Yeah. So it's things like that. And in the greater scheme of things, they're harmless. But the problem is, if these things keep getting passed down and no one is asking why, no one is explaining anything, it becomes dangerous, because then we create the culture of misinformation.
That is true, because I didn't know that when you're on your periods, you have an upper hand when it comes to salt.
You do. Even when you're heartbroken, because women were controlled by our hormones, really. I remember one time I was going through a bad breakup, and I was out with a friend. We were eating a salad, and she took one bite of my salad. She was like, "You're truly sad, because I'm eating more salt because the hormones are driving me crazy."
I didn't know that. Wow. Now, let's talk about the impact. How does stigma actually affect the girls in terms of their confidence, their education, their mental health, and how they show up in society when this myth have been passed on to them?
They do not show up as their full selves, because they're thinking this thing that's happening to them. And I like to tell girls, for example, you get a lot of boys who laugh at girls if she has smear mist on her skirt or whatever, it's cool. And just recently I tell those boys, first of all, they're idiots for laughing. Second of all, if women didn't menstruate, they wouldn't exist. So that's it. So menstruation then becomes a very powerful thing, and you can't be ashamed of such a powerful thing, right? And you get girls, they become shy, they don't want to talk about their periods. And what this leads to is that they then don't ask for sanitary products. They stay out of school simply because they're scared to tell someone, I've gotten my period.
Well, I know you've mentioned that in terms of it affects them as how they show up as now this young woman. Now, from your experience with the foundation and given the fact that you work in the region with a lot of girls, how is it like when they have conversations with their parents about getting their menstruation? Is this even a conversation that they're having? And how is that looking like? What do they do in such situations?
They don't really have these conversations. From what we've found, at best, they'll tell an aunt or a grandmother because culturally that's who you approach. But also at best, the information is amongst themselves. They listen to their friends. Maybe if in a friend group, someone has gotten their period first and has been telling them about that. At best, they get their information from their peers.
And I think this is where peer-to-peer learning then becomes a very crucial thing, because if conversations are had with their peers, and it has to be information that is accurate, information that is very reliable. Now, let's deep dive into some of the practices that are still taking place in the region, like the Sikenge. What exactly happens during Sikenge, and why is it still practiced, and how does that now, as a young person or as an adolescent girl and young woman, what does Sikenge do for me?
Okay, well, Sikenge is basically initiation, the initiation of a girl into womanhood. And I speak under correction, but I also speak as someone who has Zambian heritage, because a lot of people will tell you this is a practice that mostly came from Zambia. And when you look at that in the Zambian context, for example, in the little village where my grandfather was from, there was only a primary school. Once a girl got to grade 7, if you came from an affluent family, maybe you'd then go to Sikenge for high school, but otherwise you'd go into marriage. I imagine, how old is a girl in grade 7? 12, 11?
12, 13.
If you're sending a 12-year-old girl into marriage, obviously you have to teach her how to be a wife. So then Sikenge comes in, they'll teach girls how to have sex, how to take care of your husband, how to run a home, basically. So the premise has stayed. It is older women preparing a girl who has become of age for womanhood, except these lessons are often centered around pleasing men and wifeliness. And so the big question for me is always, what are you teaching me for myself? What happens if I never get married? What life skill have you given me? Because I don't fight Sikenge. I think it will always be necessary for there to be a platform for intergenerational
dialogue
and knowledge, even the transfer of intergenerational knowledge. We'll always need to learn things from the women before us. I think we just need to revise the curriculum a little bit. Let's change what we're teaching in Sikenge. Let's teach menstrual hygiene. Let's debunk menstrual myths in Sikenge.
I was about to ask you, when you say that they prepare you for womanhood, and when you say you're preparing somebody for womanhood and you're teaching them how to please someone else but not how to take care of themselves, that becomes a bit scarier, because how do I get to take care of someone else when I'm unable to take care of me as an individual? I think I fully agree with you when you say that it's not entirely getting rid of the practice. It's more of how do we better the practice to suit the age that we are currently at. And you've highlighted in terms of menstrual hygiene as one of the things that needs to be now incorporated into Sikenge. What other 2 key practices would you think are essential for girls to be educated about in terms of in the Sikenge practice?
Teach girls they're full human beings. Don't attach their identity and self-worth so strongly to a man, and if you don't have long labia minora, no man will want to sleep with you. Just teach them things they can do. I mean, it's fine if you're teaching me how to make a bed, as a life skill, I'll need to make my own bed. But personally, I'm a little rebellious. If you're telling me you need to make a bed every morning, otherwise your husband will leave you, I will stop making the bed every morning. So we see if this man is going to go. Because does he want a wife or does he want a bed maker? It's important. I remember years ago speaking to a young woman in Katima, and she's a producer. She has her own, she's grown, independent woman. And I remember her sharing that her mother sent her for Sikenge, and she was just wondering, what am I being taught for myself as an individual that is not tied to pleasing a man, that is not tied to I'll be a mother or I'll be a wife someday, just as a woman, as a human being. What is this thing teaching me?
And what would I do for myself if I become a single mother? Because these are conversations we need to speak about in a country with high teenage pregnancy. And maybe even speak about HIV prevention, given that we have quite a high prevalence rate in the Zambezi region when it comes to HIV infection amongst young people. Now, you've spoken about practices such as the labia, elongation, with dry sex. Where do those originate from, and what do those practices look like for those young girls?
Well, again, it comes down to pleasuring the men during sex. So the labia minora, this is the two things under your clitoris. They say that if you pull them, the longer they are during sex, they wrap around the man's penis or something like that. It makes sex pleasurable for him. The pulling itself, I guess, if a woman who understands what she's doing and why she's doing wants to pull her labia minora, all good and well. There are two issues. Often girls are told to start pulling as early as possible, so before you start your first period, because when you go for Sikenge during your first period, they will inspect whether your labia is long enough. Now that's asking very young girls, that's asking girls who have not reached teenhood yet to be pulling. And therein also comes the issue of informed consent. Girls usually just take this as law because it comes from figures of authority, their mothers or their aunties or their grandmothers. They don't question, we don't know if they even like doing this, or they're just scared of what will happen if they stand up against authority. So there is no informed consent there. Secondly, it is the things that are used to pull. Girls sometimes use clothing pegs. Recently we heard they're told to burn tire, and that residue from the tire, you use that. So it becomes a health issue. Tires. You burn that, or you burn newspaper. Girls are told to do it. So that it then, for me, becomes a human rights issue. It becomes a health issue. We're compromising the health of these girls, and we're really violating their rights. And the dry sex, women are told to use powders to dry up the walls of the vagina so that you can be tighter or whatever during penetration. Again, health issue. And also, if someone wants dry sex, often it means there are no condoms involved. And we go back to that high HIV prevalence issue.
Sure. I think I'm still shocked by the tires and newspaper burning. Like, isn't it painful for them?
Never pulled, so I wouldn't even tell you. But of course it's painful.
Sure. I think newspapers, tires, before you even reach teenhood, you're already being put through a process that you don't even understand as to what's happening. Given on the conversation and the activities that you've performed in the region with these girls, how does this affect them emotionally and physically apart from the pain?
I mean, it's obviously very distracting. It's improving a little bit that we're hearing stories now that say that, because for Sikenge is supposed to be hidden away. It can be for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. We're hearing that girls are not being kept away so long anymore because school, unless it's holiday. But also psyche. If you've come from a week of aunties telling you how to wind your waist in bed, you go back to school thinking about sex. And sometimes boys know you just come from initiation. We're curious beings. Of course, you're going to go and try testing out these new skills that you've learned. And again, teenage pregnancies also have high prevalence there.
While you speak of that, I'm actually thinking of, what if we actually give them more education on condoms, how they can be able to protect themselves, and then that allows them to at least go back to a society that is informed. Not that we're encouraging them to have sex, but given the fact that we're at the point where we see that also leads to the unintended pregnancy that we have in the HIV prevalence that is quite high, at least we are giving them options to say that, given that you're a curious being, when this happens, this is how you better protect yourself. Now, Is it possible to preserve culture while also letting go of some of the traditions that may be harmful to these young girls?
Of course. One, what makes culture is its people. People make culture. So as we evolve, surely our culture can evolve with us, but also because we want to be proud of our culture, we have a responsibility to interrogate what is good, what is not, what we want to keep, what we not, and what we want to pass down to future generations, and what we want to do away with. Because human beings are not perfect, therefore the culture we enshrine won't be perfect either, but we can always make it better.
That is indeed true. I'm going to go back again to your experiences with the young girls through the Zambezi Girl Child Foundation. What is one or two stories that have shared with you about young girls that have gone through these rituals and how this has affected them?
I think we've heard, of course, we see the teenage pregnancies, but I think I shared with you the story of one of our volunteers, Valentina, who went for Sikenge, and she talks about it now. And she says she doesn't see the point. I mean, she's like, okay, maybe I can ride dick a little better now, but that's now. At 13 years old, I had no business being taught how to ride dick, kind of thing. But also, it's in another area. I think Mahohoma, they cover you with ash, to show that you come of age now. And that's embarrassing, come on, because again, it's like a mark, so now everybody knows, and it robs you of your dignity somehow, because again, boys will tease, other girls will laugh at you, and
how long are you supposed to keep the ash on you?
For the whole week. And which is why I guess the prayer for most girls now is, let me get my period while I'm on school holiday. Because, of course, you don't want to miss days of school, but also you don't want to go to school with a mark of ash on you.
Wait. So, I just want to have some sort of understanding. When you go for Sikenge, is it your parents that take you, or is it school that takes you? How does it go?
It's a home. It's usually a granny or an auntie.
An auntie, so if you have your periods at school and you're in hostel, so that means you're safe. They would never find out.
If you don't tell them, yes, they'll never find out.
And if I already started my periods long ago, they can't take me to Sikenge because I'm already on my period.
When they find out, they will take you.
When is there ever a way out? Because I thought if I get to stay at school and get my periods and like 2 years later they find out I've gotten my periods, it's going to be too late for them to take me for Sikenge.
Oh, girl, they like what? And this is maybe a good thing, a good evolution, is now most of these practices, like the learning how to wind your waist that they reserve for like kitchen parties. If a girl is now getting married, now they say, okay, now we'll take you for Sikenge, let's see if everything. So at any point in your life, you can go.
At least I think that's one area that we can comment on, to say that they are now reevaluating to say where is the need. Because now if you say that we're moving that to now when one is preparing for marriage, at least now a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old is now much more safer, and they don't need to hear and learn about things that are none of their businesses. Because why am I hearing and learning about this? Why I'm supposed to be focusing on my education? But how does this now affect their education, relationship, and sense of worth, depending on or given the field that you've engaged with during your activities in the region?
I think it's basically just the psyche. I mean, we're grateful that girls are not being kept out of school for it. But imagine if you, say, miss a week or 2 weeks of school because you've been learning how to gyrate for a man. To come back, I'm sure you feel differently from your peers, especially if your peers haven't gone through it, because it's also not everybody who goes through it these days. I mean, most girls tell us, oh, my grandmother died, so I didn't go.
Sure.
Yeah, it's hard to focus because now you have a new kind of knowledge, and you're definitely not concentrating on mathematics anymore.
I'm just curious to find out, do I get to go to a social worker after I've gone through Sikenge? Do I get to see a life skills teacher?
Why?
I mean, I might have been traumatized.
No,
this is new information to me. Nobody cares about my trauma.
No one is thinking about trauma. I mean, do you know the Shuambo word for trauma. Because I don't know the Silozi word for trauma. And often when we don't have the language, we're not...
Wait, for somebody that did Oshiwambo first language, wait, I need a minute. Because I should know what trauma means in Oshiwambo.
Language is very important. It is powerful because for us to address the issues, we need to have the language for the issues.
That is true. So how will I tell my grandmother about trauma if I don't know how to directly translate it to my vernacular? Interesting.
We've seen cases where someone says, I want to see therapy, or I'm depressed. Or, I want to see a therapist, or I'm depressed, or whatever. Parents will ask, are you crazy?
Do you need to see a traditional healer? How often do those cases happen that somebody actually has a conversation, or given the girls that you work with and they say, no, I felt like I was depressed and I was having a conversation with my parents and they said I needed to see a traditional healer, or what did they recommend them to?
It's not conversations we've had with the girls.
Okay. Now, if we have any of the girls that may be listening to this podcast and they're about to go through Sikenge, where they're being pressured into it and trying to find their way to walk out of it, or maybe they've started their periods and they're like, my parents still don't know, what would you say to them?
They're picking you for Sikenge, tell them no. Tell them Mimi said no. And then come and find me. But also, just do not be shy to talk about your periods. There's nothing embarrassing about it. There's nothing shameful.
But I have an aunt and a grandmother who's pressuring me. I don't think that helps me in either way.
I mean...
Isn't there like some sort of laws? Isn't there like some sort of getaway that I can be able to use as an escape for myself?
I mean, honestly, your strongest thing is your voice. You just say no. And if your grandmother or your auntie are people you can have conversations with, because one of our members at the foundation, she's older, I think in her 50s or something. We had a conversation with her a couple of weeks ago. And she said, we need to remember that the people who are grandmothers now, they're not old people. They were not born in 1905. The women who are grandmothers now, they were born in the 60s and the 70s. So we're hoping, even if Sikenge is all they know because it has been passed down to them, we're hoping they're a bit more open-minded, that they can be had conversations with. That if someone says, I don't want to go for Sikenge, at the very best, like in my case, they wanted to teach me how to dance when I was getting married. And I was just like, I'm not doing that. And it's like, that one also, she's just like that. Hopefully, we're breeding a generation of women who the older women can give up on. It's like the one, there's no convincing her, just leave her alone.
Wait, have you ever gone for Sikenge? Now I'm curious.
No, I didn't go. But I did do 2 lessons. Like when I was preparing for marriage, my aunt called me and they gave me a shitenge. I said, no, I'm not doing this. Those 2 days, I felt really humiliated, very degraded. I was just like, nope. And I remember one of my cousins saying, oh, you need to remember you're an aunt too, so you'll have to
pass on this.
Yes, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited for my nieces and I'm so jealous. If I'm the auntie they're being brought to, man, I can't wait.
You're going to have fun.
I'm going to have so much fun.
And apart from now the Sikenge and the dancing, what else do they teach you in those 2 lessons that you managed to attend? Like,
all my lessons were just dancing because again, I gave them 2 days, it was done, but it's a lot, just, the things about if a man does this, don't talk too much, don't answer back. Things I can't do.
Things you can't do as a woman?
No, things I personally can't do, like
as a wife.
Talking back. As a human being.
No, what? Why is a woman being content to not do it? I mean, do they have the same conversations as men with men?
No, they do not.
And clearly, it's not for humans; it's for women.
No, I'm saying the things that were telling me not to do are obviously things I wouldn't be able. Just in my person, I wouldn't be able to follow, kind of thing.
Interesting. I wonder what men go through before marriage. Are you guys also curious to know what men go through before marriage and what they thought? Because maybe this is a conversation we're about to start having. Because if you're preparing one person for marriage and not the other, who's going to be in the marriage? That one person or both of them?
Exactly.
Wow. Maybe I should be able to get somebody else to have this conversation with us. If you two are curious and have questions that you'd like us to ask them, please do make sure to come through and give your suggestions as to how we can better have this conversation. Because yes, this is for AGYW, but what about men? Now, you work for the Zambezi Girl Child Foundation, and you've done some crucial work in the community. Now, what does your organization do on the ground to protect and uplift girls in the Zambezi region?
Our biggest mandate is fighting period poverty. We started off as a PEDS project, right? Because there was a study, I think 2018, that said the average Namibian girl misses about 45 of the school days in the school year because they're on their period and cannot afford sanitary products. And then we started going into the schools, and we learned that yes, girls are missing school because they can't afford sanitary products, but they're also missing school because of this period shame issue. They're not talking. When a girl gets her first period, instead of telling her teacher or her parents that she's gotten her period, she says, I have a headache. And this is now what's keeping her out of school. So the one is, obviously, we're trying to ensure that girls have pads, and that's not an excuse to miss school. But now we're also trying to get rid of this whole shame and stigma around periods, just trying to talk more and more about it. It's a bunch of women from the region. We all menstruate, and we show girls it's okay to talk about your period. No one is dying because we're talking about our period. But also, if a girl is too poor to afford sanitary products, she's probably coming from a household where food is also an issue, stationery is an issue, school uniform is an issue. So period poverty is a slice of poverty as a whole, you know. So we try to see how we can address this. So we try to provide stationery and school uniform and I remember, so we have a number of drives during the year. One of them is called the Dignity Drive that we have every year in August, and we had it a little earlier this year because we had some funding for it. And I remember one of the school principals at one of the schools said to me, you know, we honestly believe this will help lift the morale of the learners and help them improve their grades. So, because we have one dignity drive, but we realized that at the core of all our activities is dignity. Because to go to school not having school shoes, and you see all the other learners have school shoes, it robs you of your dignity. To have a torn shirt, and so you see the happiness on these girls to receive these new items, and you just see their morale is lifted, but also it encourages them to work hard because you've taken away a few of the stumbling blocks in their way, and they can focus on just learning. They can focus on just being children.
Wow. I like how you say they can focus on being children, and that being able to boost their morale and also restoring the dignity of the girl child. Now, often at times a conversation with the girl child, the conversation around menstruation is one that is had with women only. Now, what role do men and community leaders and even policy makers play in challenging the status quo?
Well, with the boys, firstly, the boys need to be involved in the conversation, firstly, because they need to learn at an early age that menstruation is a natural process. It is nothing to giggle and laugh or tease about, and they need to get comfortable with the conversations around menstruation, because often what we see with the girls, when we take them pads, they hide them and they're shy for the boys to see them with the pads. So we need to stop that. With the traditional leaders and policymakers, they're the voice. For example, most traditional authorities are men. They shape traditional law, they shape customary law. And so it's important for us to engage them so they can use their power to just get rid of some of these taboos or make it more natural for us to talk about menstruation, make it more natural so that women aren't afraid to say, I'm on my period in front of a man, in front of the husband. And so we just need, because a lot of the power, decision-making power lies in the hands of men, we need to engage the men.
Finally, we're getting to the last question for the day. And that's just before our quick fire chats question. But now, you've spoken so much about dignity throughout this conversation. What does menstrual dignity look like to you? And what are some of the steps that we can be able to take to ensure that we achieve that?
Access to sanitary products, access to hygienic conditions and safe water and, toilets, and but also options. It's very easy to say, oh, we're going to take reusable pads to these girls because reusable pads are more sustainable. But being poor should not mean having no choice. If a girl is more comfortable using a disposable pads, she should have access to disposable pads. If she wants to use a tampon, she should have a tampon. If she wants to use a reusable pad, she should have a reusable pad. Menstrual dignity, meaning for me, also means just the freedom and choice.
The freedom and choice. And how can we make it more? How can we achieve it? Definitely by accessibility to ensuring that they have those products at their disposal. Just
Free
not
pads,
any
please.
products. Just not any products that we think
Quality
they need.
products also.
Quality products as well as those that they prefer to use. So choice is definitely something that plays a crucial role in terms of providing this for young girls and women. Mimi, we are almost at the end of this episode, but we have what we call a quick fire segment. Those are 3 questions, fun, informative, so that we are able to now get rid of the stigma, the shame that is associated with menstruation. So your first question is the first period story in 1 word, either yours or the ones that you've heard from the young girls and women that you're working with.
Scary.
Scary. Who would have thought bringing life or being able to finally bring life into this world would be seen as scary? Your second question is, what's that one myth about menstruation that you wish you could erase forever from a young girl's mind?
That it's dirty.
That it's dirty. Sure. You know, the more words you give me, it paints a picture as to where we are as a country, where we are as communities in terms of conversations we have about menstruation. Your final question for the fire chats is, what's that one thing you wish every girl or young woman knew about their body?
It is beautiful.
Well, you've come to the end of the second episode for season 3. Yes. Maybe before I let you go, and we've actually come to the final question of the fire chats question, but I'm more curious to know, why was your first menstrual scary, or what was scary, one of the words that came to mind when you got your period?
I think because there's so little information about it before we get, like, my first time getting my period personally. I was scared because I didn't know what exactly was supposed to happen, other than I should call my aunt, and what my aunt will want to do is take me for initiation. And you'll hear this a lot from the girls, like they keep quiet because if they talk, and they hear from their friends, if they talk, they're going to teach you how to have sex.
So what's your next alternative?
Keep quiet.
How do they take care of themselves in them keeping quiet? What do
They
they
steal
use?
pads, because you'll hear a number of girls who say, oh, I stole a pad from my sister.
Sure.
So it's scary because and then you mentioned that something that enables you to bring life into the world could be scary. Bringing life into the world is scary. And also you have to think about how young girls get their period. Someone as young as 11 can get their period. You're telling an 11-year-old, you're a woman now. You can bring life into the world now. I'm 11
Even at
years
my
old.
age 24?
It's scary.
What do you mean I'm a woman? I'm just a girl. Like, I'm just a girl. Even now, if you tell me I'm a woman, I'll look at you like,
What are you talking about?
who's a woman? Me? No, I'm a girl. Literally a girl. That's all I can ever be in this community.
And so bringing life into the world, for example, is a beautiful thing, but it is also scary. Information is important. I believe strongly in conversation and just breaking silence, because the more you know, if you understand something, then you have less reason to be scared. If you just have information about something, I think information does away with fear.
Look, I'm smiling and looking at you because I'm trying to recall when I got my first period, and I'm just like, ish, how did I feel?
How did you feel? Who did you tell? I ask our girls this in the workshops. How did you feel? Who did you tell? And it's always, I was scared. I thought maybe I had hurt myself. So because no one is talking, if someone had spoken to you about your period, your first thought wouldn't be, oh, do I have an injury?
I don't think mine was an injury. I was just like, ish, now what? And I think with me, it even became, I was like, now what? I told a cousin about it, and I was just like, ish, until today, I really don't know. Hey, because it happened. I was still going to school. I think I was still in primary school. That was grade 6, grade 7, somewhere there. And the fact that there were 4 months when I didn't get my periods, and every day I used to wear that pad and throw it away because what? Am I going to have my parents think I'm having sex? And I don't know what caused that pause in the menstrual cycle, because it eventually just came back.
Okay, same also. Sometimes, and maybe this is a different episode someday, PCOS.
PCOS?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
You've probably heard of stories to say, oh, women with beards, with like chin hairs here, they're very they're very they're very strict. It's hard for them to conceive. Their periods are irregular. I have a poem, I'll send it to you. They're irregular. It's a hormonal imbalance. And a lot of women go around with undiagnosed PCOS.
I feel like you're diagnosing me. Are you a doctor?
No. I'm a woman. I'm just a woman who has a friend who shared her PCOS story.
Wait, actually, my periods are irregular, right? I have a period, and there was a pause. I still don't know where that pause came from. And I think the one thing that annoys me the most in society is how somebody will look at you with a beard and it's like, oh my God, you're so tasty. I'm like, why don't people go around saying the things? Like, there's a thing, a common belief that man is like, if you find a girl with a beard,
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. You just walk around and these are the things that are thrown at you, and I'm just like, so you look at me and the first thing you do is sexualize me. And not for any other reason that you're interested in me. You just want to prove a common myth in society. Sure. In no way. That can be the reality of the world. But I'm definitely going to check that out. And if you are experiencing any of this and you have not had your periods for a few months, you have not had sexual intercourse, please rest assured that you're not pregnant. It could be a health problem and you need to speak to somebody you trust, go to your nearest health facility, or you can be able to come at the Be Free Cares Clinic, which is located at the Be Free Youth Campus in Katutura, in Bodal Street at the Windhoek Multipurpose Youth Center, or you can be able to reach us online, that is at Be Free Namibia, on our various social media platforms, and we will definitely make sure that you can have a consultation with any of our doctors who will do the booking for you, or you can come in and we'll see how we can be able to better assist you. And with that being said, we have come to the end of episode 2 of season 3 of Sex Talks podcast. Mimi, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're quite busy, always in and out of town, but you've made time to be here and share your insights with us. Do you perhaps have any closing remarks that you'd like to give before we let
Oh, no, I'm finished. I already spoken too much. I talk too much. The people from my region, I apologize again. It's not me, it's Selma. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to talk less, please.
Talk less. How would we have this information? How will debunk some of this misinformation, some of those myths that
Other
exist
people
in
must
society?
talk. The younger generation now, the girls we're grooming, they will find their voices.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. They'll find their own voices. I love that. It's better for them to speak for themselves when we have ensured that they do have a voice for themselves. To our listeners, this is what we do to ensure that the conversations are not easy, or to ensure that we have conversations that may not be easy, but they're very necessary. And if you've ever felt ashamed of your body or of yourself because you're on your period or you've gotten your first menstrual cycle, please do not be ashamed. It's a biological process. It's natural. It's okay. You need to go through this. And nobody should ever make you feel less of a human just because you're going through it. And we've debunked a lot of myths that are around menstruation. If you have any questions, if you have any insights that you'd like to share with us, please do ensure to engage with us on our various social media platforms, our website, our various podcast streaming platforms. That's Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You are not alone in this world, and you deserve your dignity. It should never be something that you're compromising on. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep the energy going. You may be able to share this episode with a young girl that may need to hear this conversation, or someone that you feel is not well informed, or it can actually serve as a conversation starter. Yes, it will be uncomfortable, but it's a necessary conversation. Please do follow us on our social media platforms. Engage with us.